Chapter 6 of Agriculture for Beginners. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Larry Wilson. Agriculture for Beginners by Charles William Burkett. Chapter 6. The Diseases of Plants. Section 27. The Cause and Nature of Plant Disease. Plants have diseases just as animals do. Not the same diseases, to be sure, but just as serious for the plant. Some of them are so dangerous that they kill the plant. Others partly or wholly destroy its usefulness or its beauty. Some diseases are found oftenest on very young plants. Others prey on the middle-aged tree, while still others attack merely the fruit. Whenever a farmer or fruit grower has disease on his plants, he is sure to lose much profit. You have all seen rotten fruit. This is diseased fruit. Fruit rot is a plant disease. It costs farmers millions of dollars annually. A fruit grower recently lost 60 carloads of peaches in a single year through rot, which could have been largely prevented if he had known how. Many of the yellowish or discolored spots on leaves are the result of disease, as is also the smut of wheat, corn, and oats, the blight of the pear, and the wilt of cotton. Many of these diseases are contagious, or, as we often hear said of measles, catching. This is true, among others, of the apple and peach rots. A healthy apple can catch this disease from a sick apple. You often see evidence of this in the apple bin. So, too, many of the diseases found in the field or garden are contagious. Sometimes, when the skin of a rotten apple has been broken, you will find in the broken place a blue mold. It was this that caused the apple to decay. This mold is a living plant, very small certainly, but nevertheless a plant. Let us learn a little about molds in order that we may better understand our apple and potato rots as well as other plant diseases. If you cut a lemon and let it stand for a day or two, there will probably appear a blue mold like that you have seen on the surface of canned fruit. Bread also sometimes has this blue mold. At other times bread has a black mold, and yet again a pink or yellow mold. These and all other molds are tiny living plants. Instead of seeds, they produce many very small bodies that serve the purpose of seeds and reproduce the mold. These are called spores. Figure 112 shows how they are born on the parent plant. It is also of great importance to decide whether, by keeping the spores away, we may prevent mold. Possibly this experiment will help us. Moisten a piece of bread, then dip a match or pen into the blue mold on a lemon, and draw the match across the moist bread. You will thus plant the spores in a row, though they are so small that perhaps you may not see any of them. Place the bread in a damp place for a few days and watch it. Does the mold grow where you planted it? Does it grow elsewhere? This experiment should prove to you that molds are living things and can be planted. If you find spots elsewhere, you must bear in mind that these spores are very small and light, and that some of them were probably blown about when you made your sowing. When you touch the moldy portion of a dry lemon, you see a cloud of dust arise. This dust is made of millions of spores. If you plant many other kinds of mold, you will find that the molds come true to the kind that is planted, that like produces like even among molds. You can prove also that the mold is caused only by other mold. To do this, put some wet bread in a wide-mouthed bottle and plug the mouth of the bottle with cotton. Kill all the spores that may be in this bottle by steaming it in an hour in a cooking steamer. This bread will not mold until you allow live mold from the outside to enter. If, however, at any time you open the bottle and allow spores to enter, or if you plant spores therein, and if there be moisture enough, mold will immediately set in. These little plants which make up these molds are called fungi. Some fungi, such as the toadstools, puffballs, and devil's snuffbox, are quite large. Others, namely the molds, are very small, and others are even smaller than the molds. Fungi never have the green color of ordinary plants, always reproduce by spores, and feed on living matter or matter that was once alive. Puffballs, for example, are found on rotting wood or dead twigs or roots. Some fungi grow on living plants, and these produce plant disease by taking their nourishment from the plant on which they grow. The latter plant is called the host. The same blue mold that grows on bread often attacks apples that have been slightly bruised. It cannot pierce healthy apple skin. You can plant the mold in the bruised apple just as you did on bread, and watch its rapid spread through the apple. You learn from this the need of preventing bruised or decayed apples from coming in contact with healthy fruit. Just as the fungus studied above lives in the apple or bread, so other varieties live on leaves, bark, etc. Figure 113 represents the surface of a mildewed rose leaf greatly magnified. This mildew is a fungus. You can see its creeping stems, its upright stalk, and numerous spores ready to fall off and spread the disease with the first breath of wind. You must remember that this figure is greatly magnified, and that the whole portion shown in the figure is only about 1/10 of an inch across. Figure 114 shows the general appearance of a twig affected by this disease. Mildew on the rose or any other plant may be killed by spraying the leaves with a solution of liver of sulfur. To make this solution, use 1 ounce of liver of sulfur to 2 gallons of water. The fungus that causes the pear leaf spots has its spores in little pits, figure 115. The spores of some fungi also grow on stalks, as shown in figure 116. This figure represents an enlarged view of the pear scab, which causes so much destruction. You see, then, that fungi are living plants that grow at the expense of other plants and cause disease. Now, if you can cover the leaf with a poison that will kill the spore when it comes, you can prevent the disease. One such poison is the Bordeaux mixture, which has proved of great value to farmers. Since the fungus in most cases lives within the leaves, the poison on the outside does no good after the fungus is established. The treatment can be used only to prevent attack, not to cure, except in the case of a few mildews that live on the outside of the leaf, as does the rose mildew. Exercise. Why do things mold more readily in damp places? Do you now understand why fruit is heated before it is canned? Try to grow several kinds of mold. Do you know any fungi which may be eaten? Transfer disease from a rotten apple to a healthy one and note the rapidity of decay. How many really healthy leaves can you find on a strawberry plant? Do you find any spots with reddish borders and white centers? Do you know that this is a serious disease of the strawberry? What damage does fruit mold do to peaches, plums, or strawberries? Write to your experiment station for bulletins on plant diseases and methods for making and using spraying mixtures. Section 28, Yeast and Bacteria. Can you imagine a plant so small that it would take 100 plants lying side by side to equal the thickness of a sheet of writing paper? There are plants that are so small. Moreover, these same plants are of the utmost importance to man. Some of them do him great injury, while others aid him very much. You will see their importance when you are told that certain of them in their habits of life cause great change in the substances in which they live. For example, when living in a sugary substance, they change the sugar into a gas and an alcohol. Do you remember the bright bubbles of gas you have seen rising in sweet cider or in wine as it soured? These bubbles are caused by one of these small plants, the yeast plant. As the yeast plant grows in the sweet fruit juice, alcohol is made, and a gas is given off at the same time, and this gas makes the bubbles. Later, other kinds of plants equally small will grow and change the alcohol into acid, which you will recognize as vinegar by its sour taste and peculiar odor. Thus, vinegar is made by the action of two different kinds of little living plants in the cider. That these are living beings you can prove by heating the cider and keeping it tightly sealed so that nothing can enter it. You will find that because the living germs have been killed by the heat, the cider will not ferment or sour as it did before. The germs could, of course, be killed by poisons, but then the cider would be unfit for use. It is this same little yeast plant that causes bread to rise. When you see any decaying matter, you may know that in it minute plants like the yeast plant are at work. Since decay is due to them, we take advantage of the fact that they cannot grow in strong brine or smoke, and we prepare meat for keeping by salting it, or by smoking it, or by both of these methods. You see that some of the yeast plants and bacteria, as many of these forms are called, are very friendly to us, while others do us great harm. Some bacteria grow within the bodies of men and other animals or in plants. When they do so, they may produce disease. Typhoid fever, diphtheria, consumption, and many other serious diseases are caused by bacteria. Figure 118E shows the bacterium that causes typhoid fever. In the picture, of course, it is very greatly magnified. In reality, these bacteria are so small that about 25,000 of them side by side would extend only 1 inch. These small beings produce their great effects by very rapid multiplication and by giving off powerful poisons. Bacteria are so small that they are readily borne on the dust particles of the air and are often taken into the body through the breath and also through water or milk. You can therefore see how careful you should be to prevent germs from getting into the air or into water or milk when there is disease about your home. You should heed carefully all instructions of your physician on this point so that you may not spread disease. Section 29, Prevention of Plant Disease. In the last 2 sections, you have learned something of the nature of those fungi and bacteria that cause disease in animals and plants. Now let us see how we can use this knowledge to lessen the diseases of our crops. Farmers lose through plant diseases much that could be saved by proper precaution. First, you must remember that every diseased fruit, twig, or leaf bears millions of spores. These must be destroyed by burning. They must not be allowed to lie about and spread the disease in the spring. See that decayed fruit in the bin or in the trees is destroyed in the same manner. Never throw decayed fruit into the garden or orchard, as it may cause disease the following year. Second, you can often kill spores on seeds before they are planted and thus prevent the development of the fungus. Third, often the foliage of the plant can be sprayed with a poison that will prevent the germination of the spores. Fourth, some varieties of plants resist disease much more stoutly than others. We may often select the resistant form to great advantage. See Figure 119. Fifth, after big limbs are pruned off, decay often sets in at the wound. This decay may be prevented by coating the cut surface with paint, tar, or some other substance that will not allow spores to enter the wound or to germinate there. Sixth, it frequently happens that the spore or fungus remains in the soil. This is true in the cotton wilt, and the remedy is so to rotate crops that the diseased land is not used again for this crop until the spores or fungi have died. Section 30. Some special plant diseases. Fire blight of the pear apple. You have perhaps heard your father speak of the fire blight of pear and apple trees. This is one of the most injurious and most widely known of fruit diseases. Do you want to know the cause of this disease and how to prevent it? First, how will you recognize this disease? If the diseased bough at which you are looking has true fire blight, you will see a blackened twig with withered, blackened leaves. During winter, the leaves do not fall from blighted twigs as they do from healthy ones. The leaves wither because of the diseased twig, not because they are themselves diseased. Only rarely does the blight really enter the leaf. Sometimes a sharp line separates the blighted from the healthy part of the twig. This disease is caused by bacteria, of which you have read in another section. The fire blight bacteria grow in the juicy part of the stem between the wood and the bark. This tender, fresh layer, as explained on page 79, is called the cambium, and is the part that breaks away and allows you to slip the bark off when you make your bark whistle in the spring. The growth of new wood takes place in the cambium, and this part of the twig is therefore full of nourishment. If this nourishment is stolen, the plant, of course, soon suffers. The bacteria causing fire blight are readily carried from flower to flower and from twig to twig by insects. Therefore, to keep these and other bacteria away from your trees, you must see to it that all the trees in the neighborhood of your orchard are kept free from the mischievous enemies. If harmful bacteria exist in nearby trees, insects will carry them to your orchard. You must therefore watch all the relatives of the pear, namely the apple, hawthorn, crab, quince, and mountain ash, for any of these trees may harbor the germs. When any tree shows blight, every diseased twig on it must be cut off and burned in order to kill the germs. And you must cut low enough on the twig to get all the bacteria. It is best to cut a foot below the blackened portion. If by chance your knife should cut into wood containing the living germs, and then you should cut into healthy wood with the same knife, you yourself would spread the disease. It is therefore best after each cutting to dip your knife into a solution of carbolic acid. This will kill all bacteria clinging to the knife blade. The surest time to do complete trimming is after the leaves fall in the autumn, as diseased twigs are most easily recognized at that time. But the orchard should be carefully watched in the spring also. If a large limb shows the blight, it is perhaps best to cut the tree entirely down. There is little hope for such a tree. A large pear grower once said that no man with a sharp knife need fear the fire blight. Yet our country loses greatly by this disease each year. It may be added that winter pruning tends to make the tree form much new wood and thus favors the disease. Rich soil and fertilizers make it much easier in a similar way for the tree to become a prey to blight. Exercise. Ask your teacher to show you a case of fire blight on a pear or apple tree. Can you distinguish between healthy and diseased wood? Cut the twig open lengthwise and see how deep into the wood and how far down the stem the disease extends. Can you tell surely from the outside how far the twig is diseased? Can you find any twig that does not show a distinct line of separation between diseased and healthy wood? If so, the bacteria are still living in the cambium. Cut out a small bit of the diseased portion and insert it under the bark of a healthy, juicy twig within a few inches of its tip and watch it from day to day. Does the tree catch the disease? This experiment may prove to you how easily the disease spreads. If you should see any drops like dew hanging from the diseased twigs, touch a little of this moisture to a healthy flower and watch for results. Cut and burn all diseased twigs that you can find. Estimate the damage done by fire blight. Farmers' bulletins on orchard enemies are published by the Department of Agriculture, Washington, D.C., and can be had by writing for them. They will help you father much in treating fire blight. Oat smuts. Let us go out into a nearby oat field and look for all the blackened heads of grain that we can find. How many are there? To count accurately, let us select an area 1 foot square. We must look carefully, for many of these blackened heads are so low that we shall not see them at the first glance. You will be surprised to find as many as 30 or 40 heads in every 100 so blackened. These blackened heads are due to a plant disease called smut. When threshing time comes, you will notice a great quantity of black dust coming from the grain as it passes through the machine. The air is full of it. This black dust consists of the spores of a tiny fungus plant. The fungus smut plant grows upon the oat plant, ripens its spores in the head, and is ready to be thoroughly scattered among the grains of oats as they come from the threshing machine. These spores cling to the grain, and at the next planting are ready to attack the sprouting plantlet. A curious thing about the smut is that it can gain a foothold only on very young oat plants, that is, on plants about an inch long or of the age shown in Figure 121. When grain covered with smut spores is planted, the spores develop with the sprouting seeds and are ready to attack the young plant as it breaks through the seed coat. You see then how important it is to have seed grain free from smut. A substance has been found that will, without injuring the seeds, kill all the smut spores clinging to the grain. This substance is called formalin. Enough seed to plant a whole acre can be treated with formalin at a cost of only a few cents. Such treatment ensures a full crop and clean seed for future planting. Try it if you have any smut. Figure 122 illustrates what may be gained by using seeds treated to prevent smut. The annual loss to the farmers of the United States from smut on oats amounts to several millions of dollars. All that is needed to prevent this loss is a little care in the treatment of seed and proper rotation of crops. Exercise. Count the smutted heads on a patch 3 feet square and estimate the percentage of smut in all the wheat and oat fields near your home. On which is it most abundant? Do you know of any fields that have been treated for smut? If so, look for smut in these fields. Ask how they were treated. Do you know of anyone who uses bluestone for wheat smut? Can oats be treated with bluestone? At planting time, get an ounce of formalin at your drugstore or from the state experiment station. Mix this with 3 gallons of water. This amount will treat 3 bushels of seeds. Spread the seeds thinly on the barn floor and sprinkle them with the mixture, being careful that all the seeds are thoroughly moistened. Cover closely with blankets for a few hours and plant very soon after treatment. Try this and estimate the percent of smut next harvest time. Write to your experiment station for a bulletin on smut treatment. Potato scab. The scab of the white or Irish potato is one of the commonest and at the same time most easily prevented of plant diseases. Yet this disease diminishes the profits of the potato grower very materially. Figure 123 shows a very scabby potato, while Figure 124 represents a healthy one. This scab is caused by a fungus growth on the surface of the potato. Of course, it lessens the selling price of the potatoes. If seed potatoes be treated to a bath of formalin just before they are planted, the formalin will kill the fungi on the potatoes and greatly diminish the amount of scab at the next harvest. Therefore, before they are planted, seed potatoes should be soaked in a weak solution of formalin for about 2 hours. 1/2 pint of formalin to 15 gallons of water makes a proper solution. 1 pint of formalin, or enough for 30 gallons of water, will cost but 35 cents. Since this solution can be used repeatedly, it will do for many bushels of seed potatoes. Late potato blight. The blight is another serious disease of the potato. This is quite a different disease from the scab and so requires different treatment. The blight is caused by another fungus which attacks the foliage of the potato plant. When the blight seriously attacks a crop, it generally destroys the crop completely. In the year 1845, a potato famine extending over all the United States and Europe was caused by this disease. Spraying is the remedy for potato blight. Figure 128 shows the effect of spraying upon the yield. In this case, the sprayed field yielded 324 bushels an acre, while the unsprayed yielded only 100 bushels to an acre. Figure 127 shows the result of 3 applications of the spraying mixture on the diseased field. Figures 129 and 130 show how the spraying is done. Exercise. Watch the potatoes at the next harvest and estimate the number that is damaged by scab. You will remember that formalin is the substance used to prevent grain smuts. Write to your state experiment station for a bulletin telling how to use formalin, as well as for information regarding other potato diseases. Give the treatment a fair trial in a portion of your field this year and watch carefully for results. Make an estimate of the cost of treatment and of the profits. How does the scab injure the value of the potato? The late blight can often be recognized by its odor. Did you ever smell it as you passed an affected field? Clubroot. Clubroot is a disease of the cabbage, turnip, cauliflower, etc. Its general effect is shown in the illustration, Figure 131. Sometimes this disease does great damage. It can be prevented by using from 80 to 90 bushels of lime to an acre. Black knot. Black knot is a serious disease of the plum and of the cherry tree. It attacks the branches of the tree. It is well illustrated in Figure 132. Since it is a contagious disease, great care should be exercised to destroy all diseased branches of either wild or cultivated plums or cherries. In many cases, its destruction is enforced by law. All black rot should be cut out and burned sometime before February of each year. This will cost little and save much. Peach leaf curl. Peach leaf curl does damage amounting to about $3 million yearly in the United States. It can be almost entirely prevented by spraying the tree with Bordeaux mixture or lime sulfur wash before the buds open in the spring. It is not safe to use strong Bordeaux mixture on peach trees when they are in leaf. Cotton wilt. Cotton wilt, when it once establishes itself in the soil, completely destroys the crop. The fungus remains in the soil, and no amount of spraying will kill it. The only known remedy is to cultivate a resistant variety of cotton or to rotate the crop. Fruit mold. Fruit mold, or brown rot, often attacks the unripe fruit on the tree and turns it soft and brown and finally fuzzy with a coat of mildew. Figure 133 shows some peaches thus attacked. Often the fruits do not fall from the trees, but shrivel up and become mummies. This rot is one of the most serious diseases of plums and peaches. It probably diminishes the value of the peach harvest from 50 to 75%. Spraying, according to the directions in the appendix, will kill the disease. End of chapter 6.